I've got Petros Klampanis on the line, bassist, composer, band leader, any number of titles you could add to your name. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm happy that we talk again.
Indeed, yes, it has been a long time. I spoke to you, yes, as we were mentioning about it, probably about a year and a half ago, but yes, here we are again. After the release of your latest album, which is Chroma, however you want to say it, which came out in early 2017, and yes, you have been touring behind it and playing shows. What have the shows been like? How have the reviews been? Give us all the lowdown.
It's been very well, actually. The reviews are very, very good, like from the States, from Japan, from Europe. I'm very happy about how people have embraced it and reacted to the music. It's very fulfilling for me as a musician and creator to witness that. So that this gives me courage and the drive to work harder and more. And I'm actually ready to record my fourth album this November, like in a few days actually. So that's I can use this reaction. So I'm very happy about it. As you said, I've been touring all over the world, basically, presenting the album, and also with my other side projects. I'm lucky enough to work with great musicians. Most of them are, from New York, my theoretically my hometown, because I'm hardly ever there lately. So yeah, I've been traveling with Chroma and other projects.
Yeah, I can see you're a busy man at the moment. So, well, you're currently in Spain, is my understanding. So, where have you been already? Where is the tour taking you next? How long left on this tour?
Yeah, so this tour started in late September, actually, and it's been mostly Europe with a little break in Japan. I was there for 4 days. And before Spain, I was in Italy, and now I'm here mostly in Catalonia, playing with a piano player from here. His name is Luis Capdevila. And after that, I'm gonna perform one show at the Madrid Jazz Festival with pianist Shai Maestro.
Yes.
And after that, I'll be presenting my music again in Germany, in Münster, at a festival called Münsterland Festival. And this year, Greece is in the spotlight, let's say. So they have invited many Greek jazz artists and traditional crossover artists, and I'm lucky enough to be part of this very, very good festival, actually.
Okay, so when is the Greece kind of festival gigs going to be happening roughly?
After Germany, I'm gonna go to Greece for recording the album, as I said before.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so it's gonna be, and since my trio is gonna be in Athens, I thought that we could do a presentation there, and we'll be performing at a very nice venue in Athens called Gazarte.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I thought when you mentioned the recording of the album, you were going to be going back to New York to do the recording, but okay, you're going to be doing it in Greece.
I thought doing it in Athens this time, because it's most of the music of this album actually was composed in Greek territory, like in 3 islands, basically, in my home island Zakynthos, in another beautiful island called Folegandros, and at another island equally beautiful called Tinos. and I was lucky enough to have like beautiful pianos. I managed to find like full-size Steinway pianos in these uh, islands, which was a very fortunate event and very inspirational one, because I had the chance to be in a beautiful place playing a beautiful instrument. So most of the music was composed in Greece. So I found it appropriate to also record in Greece this time.
Excellent, very nice. Well, yeah, the Greek music scene is probably not very well known outside of Greece, especially the jazz scene, but there's some fantastic musicians that have done some great work and great recordings in Greece.
Mm-hmm. It's true. There are many excellent musicians, not only jazz musicians, but the wealth of talent and creativity in the traditional folkloric scene is unimaginable. Like, I've had the chance to work with some younger musicians, like traditional musicians, and it's really inspiring because these people, they're playing in villages, festivities, so they have all the traditional knowledge going on, but also they are updated musically. So they've studied classical music, they are aware of jazz music, so they have a huge, spectrum of knowledge, and it's really inspirational to work with them.
Excellent. It's good to hear. Good to see that despite the ongoing financial troubles that Greece and Europe is going through, people can still find an outlet in music.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's true. And to be honest, I think during the times of crisis, people may get stronger, and I feel that this is true for many cases. In Greece, like arts have been, people have been starting being more creative. I think. So I don't say that crisis is a good thing, but it can have, in the long run, good results in certain aspects.
Let's take a step backwards. Once again, let's go back to your album Chroma. You recorded this album live and in front of an audience, so it wasn't live in the studio, but live, on stage, so to speak. What made you to decide to do it in this way?
Well, I've been working with this specific formation for already 6 years. We started playing together in 2011, and we recorded one album before Chroma, Minor Dispute, which was a studio album. And I felt, that it was a good moment to captivate the energy of this formation live, as it happens on the bandstand. So that was the main reason that I decided to do this. This kind of music, jazz music and improvised music, is a lot about the moment, and it's a lot about the interaction of the band with the audience. So, that was my goal, and I think we achieved it, actually.
Your music that you played on Chroma, you mentioned jazz is all about improvisation and the interaction between the musicians. So how much of Chroma was kind of written out, and how much of the music that ended up on the album was improvised?
It's kind of equalized. Like, the way I think when I compose is that I want this to achieve a kind of a balance between the strictly written and orchestrated material with the freedom of the improvisation. So I guess I could say, my goal is to be kind of 50-50. Okay. So the melodies and some parts are very well thought and orchestrated, and other parts are just free or just based on a basic idea, and everybody can do, what he or she wants.
Very nice. And yeah, obviously, you goes without saying, you rehearsed, and you guys, as you mentioned, have been playing with each other for at least 6 or so years now. But even so, in a live setting, anything can happen. Be it, I don't know, somebody breaks a string or whatever the case may be. Did you have a plan B in place? And
Yes, well, to be honest, we actually, after the actual show, we had another day to record, once again the same show. So that was my plan B. So we invited again an audience. So we kind of, imitated the actual show conditions. But in the end, everything went well. So I ended up using like 95% of the actual, show material.
You're a bass player. You play the double bass. It's your name on the album that you're releasing. Even so, it's not the music that you're playing and that you're composing isn't solely focused on you and your instrument. So
Totally.
Yes. So do you always have that consciously in mind to write a song that includes a band, or is that, do you kind of do that on purpose, or is that just kind of naturally how you write as opposed to writing for a solo instrument?
Well, I'm trying to take distance from my, role as a bass player and even as a composer. So when I write music, I'm trying to take the role of a listener and be as neutral as possible. I'm actually trying to kind of time travel to an age that I was not a bass player, or I was not aware of all the musical theory and the harmony that I studied, and try to be as neutral and as receptive as possible. So this is the kind of listener I try to be. And so when I compose music, I try to make a story, like a musical story, for this imaginary listener of mine. So having said that, it really doesn't matter if I'm a bass player or even if I'm a jazz musician. I just try to create a musical story that has its own musical rules, and it's like a small musical world by itself. So yeah, I don't necessarily focus on the bass or the piano or the guitar. It's just I just see it as a whole.
Understand. Very nice. And yeah, especially on Chroma, the music that you're presenting on the album is very much kind of painting an image. So yeah, it's almost cinematic, I would say, in its sound. Is cinematic composition something that you are considering going down at all? Writing for film, writing for TV, writing for anything along those lines?
Actually, yes, and I hear it from many people actually lately. And it's something that it's definitely in my mind to pursue at some point. Already, some of the Chroma music is gonna be used for a documentary, which is gonna be released, I think, this spring. And other people have been asking me to use my recorded music for their footages, but at some point I would like to actually go for it and write music for an actual movie or a documentary. And yeah, so in that sense, yes, of course, it's in my mind.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing what becomes of that. In your group, you've got Gilad Now I'll try and say the name properly. Gilad Hexelman
Exactly.
on guitar, whose playing I absolutely love, especially seeing as I'm a big fan of the guitar. And you've got John Hadfield on drums. Both of these guys you've been playing with for a number of years now. How did you guys meet, and what was it about their playing that made you say, I want to work with these guys, I want to have these guys in my band?
Well, I know Gilad, as you said, for a number of years now. We met in New York in 2009, I believe. I saw him playing with Ari Honig, a great drummer from New York, at the club Smalls. And immediately I felt a musical connection with Gilad because he's a very, very melodic player, very expressive and musical. And although he's a very knowledgeable jazz musician, I think that his inspiration comes from somewhere deeper. And, you know, he's a very strong rhythmical player. He has a beautiful sound. So for all these reasons, I kind of fell in love with his with his music. So we started, playing together since then. I've been playing his music, he's been playing my music. So it's a creative musical relationship. And the same almost happened with John. John is an amazing drummer and percussionist, and he's not only very strong rhythmically, but he has this other element which I'm searching for when I play with a drummer, and it's the aspect of sensitivity. He can play loud, he can play soft, he plays with dynamics. He's a great listener, and he's a great guy. So I love this trio. I love this formation, which is the actual core of the bigger group.
Yeah.
Of the Chroma formation, let's say.
Yep. And I think dynamics is kind of the key word that you used in your answer there. The dynamics are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You are the composer of the music that you are releasing and that comes out under your name, but how does the choice of players influence the compositions?
It influenced the compositions a lot because I'm actually writing the music for this specific group. Okay. So, this music would be completely different if these players were not involved. So when I write a melody, I have Gilad in my mind, or I have John in my mind when I'm, trying to imagine a rhythm. So they are very strong elements in the process of composing, for sure.
Interesting. And you also seem to seek out musicians, I would say, whose cultural and music backgrounds is different to your own. Would I be correct in saying that? And why is it that you do that?
Well, the reason to begin with that I actually moved to New York is because I wanted to find people from different musical backgrounds and cultures, and I think the combination of this musical, and not only musical, but in a more broad sense, backgrounds, and it's a very important element for being creative. I think that's what is more interesting when I listen to music, the combination of different musical languages, different concepts. That's what I like when I listen to music.
Nice.
And I'm trying to capture that in my music as well.
Well, I think you're doing a very good job of it personally.
Thank you.
And you are known for using effects on the double bass, such as loop pedals, but also using the body of the bass as a percussive instrument also. You see guitarists using this technique quite a lot these days, but it's not really a technique you see people playing the double bass using.
Mhm.
Who did you first see using this technique, and how did you go about developing your own style for the double bass?
Well, the first person I saw was Jaco Pastorius.
Mm-hmm.
He started using the looper already in the 80s. Jaco was always a very big inspiration of mine, and he really influenced my playing when I was an electric bass player already. But I still, keep him in my heart and in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still one of my main inspirations now. So yeah, I guess Jaco was the one. But also, I've been listening to Avishai Cohen, who uses the instrument as a percussion instrument. I try. Basically, I'm just trying to be as creative as possible, and bass is not. How to say? It's like an unexplored territory.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of potential there. Like, you can play harmony on it. You can play melodies. Like the timbre is wonderful. You can play the percussion as you said. I think it can create a very special and very charming musical world by itself.
I don't disagree with you, and yes, I do think you are correct in saying that it's especially the double bass is kind of unexplored territory in terms of composing this kind of music which you're doing. I'm not familiar. I'm sure there's others out there, but I'm not familiar with anybody else that's doing quite what you're doing with the double bass. In addition to the use of the loop pedals and doing the percussion on the double bass, you're also using your voice to create melodies in your music, even though you're not actually singing. Once again, how did this come about into your music, and do you sing very much?
Well, I don't sing very much these days, but I started singing way before I started playing any instruments. My first, very influential experience of mine, very, strong musical experience of mine comes from the age of 5 or 6. I remember during this time I became a member of a local choir in the island I grew up called Zakynthos.
Mm-hmm.
And, Zakynthos is a very musical place. We have a very strong choir tradition there. And I remember this emotion when I joined the choir and when I heard all these, voices that were well in tune. They were, the pitch was very accurate and I could hear like 2 or 3 voices going on. It was almost like an orgasmic experience for me. So, basically my first instrument is my voice. And for a while, I stopped singing. I took the role of the jazz musician that, practices his instrument and knows all about harmony and melody and stuff, and kind of suppressed this part of my musicality. And at some point, I started playing with pop artists in New York, and in the beginning I started being like a backing vocalist and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I started getting again into singing. So at this point, I like using my voice as an instrument. As you said, I don't sing with lyrics. I don't feel comfortable. Maybe in the future, I don't know, this will change. But yeah, definitely, I think voice is a beautiful instrument. It makes music more human and intimate. It's a very strong instrument.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that was kind of you already answered my next question, whether in the future we will ever see a vocal Petros Klampanis album. But yeah, maybe in the future, you say. We'll see.
Maybe. Who knows?
Who knows? Anything is possible. And what are the reactions? Once again, we're talking about, this is almost unexplored territory, the way that you're using your instrument. So what is the reaction of people when they see you using it in this way?
Well, I think in the beginning, when I start playing a bass solo, people are like, okay, this guy is gonna play a bass solo, and it's time for us to talk. These jokes going on. But when they actually realize that they can hear something while I don't play the instrument, which is the looper effect, they're like, okay, what is going on? And that's eventually they get into it, and they they like it. I think it's also interesting to watch it like in a live situation and to witness how the layers are built up and the counterpoint that is going on, and in the end how double bass can create such a full and fulfilling musical result.
Yeah.
So I think people are interested. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And you also, as well as voice and the bass, you mentioned you started off playing piano, from what I understand. You've mentioned in the past. Mm-hmm. What made you switch from the piano to the bass?
Well, it was, I think, when I was a teenager, I wanted to expand and discover more things. Like, I was playing 10 years piano already when I decided to switch instrument. And I was considering the electric guitar because, I was into rock music and Pink Floyd and Rage Against the Machine. And so electric guitar was the number one, choice back then. But this changed when I saw a concert of a popular artist from Greece called Alkinos Ioannidis.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy was playing with an amazing bass player called Yotis Kyrtsoglou, who became my, bass hero back then. And he was also my teacher, and now we are good friends and sometimes play together. So he was actually the reason why I switched to electric bass initially, and then acoustic bass. Mm-hmm. Because, I started falling in love with the acoustic sound and the jazz tradition from the 50s and 60s. And I decided to switch to the acoustic sound, basically.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned at the start that we've mentioned many times you're of Greek background and that the music scene in Greece is really flourishing at the moment. Is there any particular artists in Greece that really are making an impression on you currently?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I really like this group called Takim, Takim. I've been working with these musicians, especially with the leader of the band, who is called Thomas Kostadinu. He's an oud player, and he also, plays lauto. He's a singer, composer. He's exactly what I was describing before about this new type of traditional musicians in Greece. He's very knowledgeable about musical tradition, and not only musical tradition, but also like the ethnomusicological aspects, like where influences are coming from and how they interact, and all this deep knowledge combined with the knowledge of modern music. So that it's a very special combination, I find. And Takim, it's a band that plays traditional music, but with a very open mind. So, yeah, when we work together, it's very inspiring and very interesting. So Takim is one good example. Also, I've started working with Areti Ketime, who is a great young singer and santuri player. She's excellent.
Areti,
Another Ketime.
does she play the hammered dulcimer?
Exactly.
She plays on Stiniyamas. She's been on quite a few times. Am I right?
Totally, yes.
I know the one you're referring to.
Yeah. Yes, she's very famous actually in Greece. Mm-hmm. She became famous for her work with Dalaras at some point. She was, a prodigy kid. Also, another musician that I really like, he lives in Boston right now. He's called Vasilis Kostas.
Sorry, say that one again.
Vasilis Kostas.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in Boston. I think he studies at Berklee College of Music, or he's a graduate. And he plays oud, but in a very, very, lauto, in a very special way. He has studied jazz basically on lauto, but he also he's actually a master of traditional music. So the combination of like deep traditional knowledge and deep jazz knowledge, I find it very very charming and very creative, and it's very interesting.
Nice. And yeah, it's been 10 years roughly since you moved to New York, but you still talk very passionately about the Greek musicians and the Greek traditional kind of scene and music scene. What made you move to New York initially, and do you ever see yourself moving back from New York?
Well, I moved there because of music, of course.
Yeah.
I studied there for like a couple of years. I did my master's degrees there, which at the time it was a good idea because it provided me with a student visa. I could be there and also be in an academic environment, so it was a good start. And then I decided when I graduated to stay there and meet people, play with people, be a part of the New York scene, which is, I think it's a very special one. Like the level of commitment that I witnessed there, it's the most serious I've ever witnessed. People are, very professional. They have, a vision, which is inspiring, especially for a person coming from, completely different environment.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that even when I'm, if I decide to go somewhere else and consider a different place as my actual hometown, I will still keep New York as my ideal in many aspects.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I'm gonna move out anytime soon, actually.
That's fine.
And even if I move out, I will always be around there. Most of my musical collaborators are there anyways, so I guess that's my home for a while at least.
Understand completely. You've previously organized the jazz festival in Zakynthos, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. How did this come about, and is this something that you're still involved with?
I'm still involved in Zande Jazz for sure. We started it in 2009 with three friends and musical collaborators of mine that are from Zakynthos, and we've been doing it since then, with a break of we did a break in 2012 and also this year. But next year, I think we're gonna continue doing it. It's interesting to see how a society that it's it has no influence of jazz whatsoever, how they embraced it, and it's interesting to see the interaction between people that are coming from New York or from Europe or other places with the local society of Zakynthos.
Mm-hmm.
Now people, they ask me, they want the festival to happen again. So this, it gives me motivation to organize it again and go further with it.
Nice. Sounds like you're a very busy man at the moment.
I am, actually. Yes. I'm happy to, be involved in things that are, creative, and I'm very happy to do what I'm doing, actually.
Obviously, it goes without saying. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it.
Totally.
And you've spoken about a project that you have in mind regarding the relevance of traditional Greek music in Greece today. Do you feel a need, or that you have to, or that people have to keep the musical traditions alive? Do you feel that they're by chance fading in any way? Is that why you're doing it? And what more can you tell us about this project?
I think musical tradition in Greece is quite strong, especially in non-urban places. Like if you go to a village during August in Greece, you will see amazing music. You see the tradition being alive and kicking, and people are enjoying it a lot still. So I wouldn't say that tradition is fading. I think it's changing, which has always been the case. And that's what interests me. I like to see, as I said before, I feel that this is my role as a musician. Also like to make bridges between musical styles, and since I'm from Greece and I happen to grow up in this environment, I think it's worthy exploring the interaction between the Greek tradition and jazz, which is the music that I've been studying and playing for the past 15, 20 years. So this is gonna be my new project, which is gonna be actually also filmed. It's gonna be a movie.
Mm-hmm.
About how musical tradition from Greece interacts with the musical, let's say, tradition from New York. Mm-hmm. And the dialogue between these two worlds, I will try to capture.
Nice. Sounds very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And how does composing music differ to performing music in front of an audience? What feelings does each one bring out of you?
The way I see it is composing is like writing a poem, and when you play music live, is as if you're you are well aware of the grammar and of the musical structures, and you are ready to say a musical story that it's not has been told before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when I compose, I'm like a writer, and when I perform, I'm like I don't know, like this Cretan, this Cretan people, the people from Crete, that they create all these madinadas, poems actually on the spot, like 15 syllables poems on the spot. So this is kind of what happens when when we perform live. We create music on the spot, like a musical story on the spot.
Nice. And you have mentioned that you would like to bring in more visual elements into your live performances. How do you make sure that the two elements marry and that the visual doesn't distract people from the music?
Well, when I work on a project that involves both visual elements and musical elements, I'm trying to see the whole, the spectacle as a whole. So it's like, again, as a dialogue. Sometimes music takes the lead, or sometimes the visual takes the lead, and sometimes it's in a balance or in unbalance. So I don't see it like the visual will take from the music. I think it's the interaction that makes it interesting.
Nice. And you have recorded reinterpretations of the traditional Greek songs Chariklaki and also Thalasaki. This seems to be happening more and more, not only by yourself but from other artists as well. What is it about taking a well-known piece of music and turning it upside down and inside out? How?
Yeah. Well, it's, as I said before, it's like it's very interesting for me to see how the jazz world interacts with the traditional world. So that's what happened with both Thalasaki and Chariklaki. I try to keep a very open mind, and in the same time, respect tradition. I chose to, harmonize melodies that are kind of well-tempered. So I would, if I had chosen like a modal, like an usak, let's say, mode that it's not well-tempered, I wouldn't treat it in the same way. I always try to be respectful on the tradition, but at the same time, as as they say, to try to push the envelope. I want to be bold and experiment and see what happens. I think it worked, at least for these two examples. So I'm planning to do it more, and the new project is gonna be a lot about it, like the project we were talking about before.
Yep. The regarding the traditional Greek music.
Exactly.
Yep. Not only have you done reinterpretations of traditional music, you've also done reinterpretations of well-known Beatles songs as well, with some other people. What have the reactions been like to the reinterpretations of the Beatles songs that you have done?
It's been pretty good. We did actually a project with Gilad Hexelman, the guitarist, and Ziv Ravich, the drummer. We did this project called Across the Rooftop, and it was actually a concert in New York in 2016, in the summer of 2016. And we invited people, friends of ours, most of them. And basically we recorded 10 Beatles songs that we liked. The whole concert was recorded and also visually and audiovisually.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the songs are already on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
3 of them actually. And now we're working on more tunes. We have Something, the
Yep.
George Harrison tune. George Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
We have Across the Universe.
Yep.
And I Love Her. So we have 3 songs online.
Nice. Yeah, I have seen them. I think they're really, really interesting. Yeah, they work. It's interesting. It's always interesting to hear reinterpretations of all well-known songs. Is there anything else that we haven't covered? We've mentioned, many projects that you're currently involved with. Is there anything that you currently have on the horizon that maybe we haven't covered that you want to mention?
I do this project that may be interesting for the listeners. I've started this video, like YouTube project, which I call Rooftop Stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the videos that I've posted on my media. The idea is that since I'm traveling so much around the world, I may as well somehow capture that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that I'm choosing, a picturesque rooftop in cities around the world and play bass solo.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already done it in Athens, where I covered Footprints, a Wayne Shorter composition.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did another one in London, where I play Alfonsina y el Mar by Ariel Ramirez, the Argentinian composer. And also I've done one in Nagasaki in Japan.
Nice.
And this is not yet publicized. It's going to be shared in early December, I think. And, I'm planning to post one video each month. And it's going to be from Berlin, from New York, Tel Aviv, probably from Zakynthos, my home island, and other places that I travel at. Barcelona, maybe.
Well, thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Nice.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you again. And yes, we'll make sure we speak again sometime in the future.